Sounds good. So to give you a quick snapshot, so I started my career as a software developer, transitioned into consulting, and I spent roughly half my career in management consulting, so doing a mix of strategy and technology work, as well as process reengineering. So transitioned into high tech coming out of consulting, and spent a good amount of time with Dell and Apple before joining SAP. And one other kind of in parallel, I was an officer in the Navy. So I joined the Navy,
Okay.
so from a leadership standpoint I spent 9 years in the Navy. So had a good experience as far as, working with, a number of folks both in the Navy and the Marine Corps.
That's interesting. I mean, I guess that gives you another kind of insight or a different angle to leadership, I presume. And I mean, what were the most sort of valuable lessons that I guess translates from a kind of military career to your current role at SAP, and again other roles that you've had at businesses?
I would say one of the most important things being, really the focus on your people, taking care of people, having a very much an investment in their success and making sure that they're taken care of, and weaving that into just the overall, mission success. So making sure that really the two priorities are balanced. So, when I think back, for example, to some time in consulting, it was very easy to sacrifice, staff, for example, to accomplish a given project.
Sure.
But I felt that the Navy did a very nice job of making sure that, they referred to it as your mission and your men. So making sure that both what you accomplish and the folks that you drive through to success as a team, are given the same level of priority and the same importance.
Okay, fantastic. Obviously, a sort of overarching theme for us, digital transformation, and I guess this kind of enterprise approach, it informs your work. I mean, if you're looking back at that career and we're sort of drawing on those experiences, and again, this is sort of framing context question, how has that sort of concept changed as technology has evolved for enterprises? And what would you say have been the sort of key trends that are driving this heightened or increased need to transform, as it were?
I would say it's the fact that you now have the ability to have essentially business models on demand come to life. So when you look at a Tesla or an Uber or a Lyft, I mean, you now have essentially a platform approach where, as opposed to needing a dedicated application or a certain system to come to life to influence a specific change, you now have a platform that you could essentially, very similar to Lego blocks. I mean, you can create a number of new businesses or a number of new concepts in a very short period of time with a number of pre-defined or pre-built services or microservices. So when you think about the acceleration moving from a mainframe environment into client server, and now we're at, the cusp of edge services and edge computing, it becomes very exciting to see how you can weave together the fabric of a company in short order. So whether that's a new venture within an SAP, for example, or whether that's a portfolio company, you can do it in relatively short order. And when you see the impact and the magnitude, I mean, look at the Fortune 500, for example. I mean, a third of them are slated to be shifted out of the Fortune 500 every 5 to 7 years. So you're seeing a rapid, escalation of, new business models coming to life and being able to displace incumbents, both in terms of market value as well as, from a customer experience standpoint. So I see that as really the key trend, that you have a number of business models that technology can enable in short order, and being able to bring those to life, in a matter of, months as opposed to, years or decades.
Right. And obviously technology a core enabler of that. I mean, for you and I guess for SAP and the work you're doing at the moment, what are the core technologies that are really driving the most change, and I guess bringing the most value and the biggest evolution to enterprises?
So I would say it's very much a 4-part, kind of weave. So it's a mix of edge services, data management, analytics, and potentially supply chain offerings. And SAP is uniquely positioned because we've had 45 years of experience in the supply chain domain, and being able to have a deep functional understanding of business process enables us to really be able to look at, new business models and new operating models for our customers through a unique lens. And when you marry up edge services, data management, analytics, and digital supply chain services into a holistic offering. So this is actually something that we announced, publicly in October with Verizon, for example, that we went to market to be able to showcase how we could leverage our platform. So those 4 portfolio areas woven together to then be able to help shape and influence a given organization's IoT strategy becomes very powerful, because whether it's a retailer and you're using video analytics at scale in that retail store, or a manufacturing shop floor looking to leverage IoT or new sensors and AR technologies, SAP can provide the backbone and the foundation, as well as serve as an accelerator to bring those new technologies to life, to be able to help spur a new level of digital transformation and new innovation moving forward.
Sure. And since that announcement in October, how has that concept, I guess, for want of a better phrase, been grasped by the enterprises, the companies that you're working with? How has it rolled out? I mean, has it been as you expected? Has it been better? Has it, how has that sort of journey gone?
That journey has gone very well. I mean, we're very excited by the adoption, and even having customers pulling us for those solutions, because it's a unique offering in the sense that we've taken our platform and married them together. So we've created the glue that's pulled together disparate aspects of our platform and married it into advanced connectivity. So partnering with a Verizon, for example, to be able to link in and have their Mobile Edge Connect platform, which brings edge services to a number of organizations moving forward across vertical. That's a very powerful statement, and we've had quite a bit of an upswell of customer adoption, even in the economic times that we have today. It's very exciting to see quite a few customers anxious to take advantage of new advanced connectivity married with our IoT solution.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Frank. And I mean, I guess more for my benefits and to frame the article, I mean, the Center of Excellence. Could you give me a sort of overview of some of the core fundamental activities, and I guess the differentiators between an SAP Center of Excellence and some of your competitors or some other similar businesses in the industry? I mean, what are you giving to companies that others aren't, for example?
So I would say, so the Global Center of Excellence is designed to do a couple things. It's really designed to both innovate with our customers, as well as help us innovate with our sales process internally. So from a customer standpoint, we help customers think differently about SAP, because most customers think of us as a legacy ERP organization. That we can handle finance and supply chain, and we're essentially that foundation and that bedrock to be able to operate your business.
Yep.
But what they don't often see us as an innovator, as an organization that's nimble, that's fast, that's quick to market, that's customer responsive. So the global COE, so there's 160 of us in the global COE, and the intent is to help serve as the glue, pulling together our product organization and our sales organization to be much more customer focused. So when we sit down with a large, customer, whether it's a Dell or a Cisco or an Apple, we'll sit down. Because we have limited resources, but we will typically focus in on strategic accounts and help them think differently around what their data can do for them. So our focus, tied into my platform comment earlier, we take very much a data platform approach, and we bring in usually a team of data scientists and platform architects that can help a key customer of ours innovate. So think of it like a test drive. So if I'm a large organization, I have a wealth of data, whether that's I'm looking for ways to improve how I operate internally, or whether I'm looking for new customer experience enhancements. My team will drop in, and we will help put together custom machine learning or predictive models to be able to help the customer using their data think differently, whether that's a regression model around losing customers, whether that's identifying the ideal price points for products and product adoption before a product is even launched. There's a number of things that my team will do from a data science standpoint and a predictive modeling aspect that showcases the power of our tools and the power of SAP's platform. So think of it like a test drive. We're taking that customer around the block for them to see how fast they can go, how responsive our platform and tools can be, and how exciting the experience can be. And again, it fundamentally changes the dynamic. And one of the other key points that I would highlight is, like I mentioned, we're pulling together sales and our product organization, so we serve a stitching function. One of the core components is the fact that we get customers outside of our typical finance and IT stakeholders. So because we're having much more of a business-led conversation, it's not bound by a technology or bound by a given solution set or product set. We instead engage with a general manager or a VP of sales or marketing, across industry. And the idea being that we help them think through a business problem and then pull through the technical solution rather than thinking it in the other direction in terms of looking at it through the lens of an IT or a technology view. We instead look at it through a business strategy component. So why is a retention model, for example, key for a bank or a telco? Well, it helps you better understand the life cycle of that individual consumer for you to be able to act on. So our platform and tools can be applied to showcase, well, what is that life cycle of that customer? Where would you need to engage with them proactively, potentially before they may have left your service? So we look at those type of models and we do them really in a matter of just a few weeks. 6 to 8 weeks is typically a proof of concept timeframe that we'll run. And then it gives the customer, again, a unique lens into SAP and into our approach, because we've just fundamentally changed from moving from, because it often takes us a few months even to put a contract together. But my team will drop in on the ground and we'll do this as an investment in the relationship at no cost. And we can have the project done often before even a contract would need to typically be generated.
Okay. So I know it's going to be difficult to be general in a sense, perhaps, but I mean, if you're looking at those typical innovation journeys that you're helping those organizations with, what are the main challenges or pinch points that many organizations face, particularly, I guess, in a sort of technology adoption sense as they travel along that journey?
I would say one of the key challenges, and we've run into this quite a few times with a number of customers, is really the question of where to start. Because you have so much data, because you have so much available at your fingertips. I mean, our customers are swimming in data, right? I mean, when you think about just the fact that for video analytics or for any kind of customer engagement or database around buying behavior, they're swimming in data. So where do they start the journey? So one of the innovation methodologies that our team has developed within the global COE has been to help customers along that life cycle. So to identify, what are the use cases that are most impactful? And we've done this actually quite a bit in the 5G space, for example. So we've taken a look at, what use cases, and it's often not for lack of identifying use cases, it's often that we come up with too many. So how can we help our customers rank, prioritize the ones that are the most impactful? So within SAP, and this is something that we've perfected over the last 45 years, has been one to look at the business problem through the lens of the end user or the lens of the consumer, so to be design-led. We then use our platform and tools to serve as the foundation to pull customer data into. But in terms of then rank prioritizing, so let's say we've come up with a dozen potential use cases or AI or machine learning models that a customer would be interested in us working with them on, we can help them apply a business case to really the top 3 or 4 to be able to rank prioritize. Well, what's the impact? What's the revenue generating aspect? What's the potential cost savings or operational savings? And we do that in a relatively short period of time, and we've ground that into an overall innovation methodology that I would say is unique. So to your point earlier, what does unique that SAP brings to the table is the fact that we've done this over the last 45 years. So we've helped customers see through the eyes of their employees or their consumers, what experiences would they like to drive. We then have solutions, particularly, cross-functional solutions across our partner base, like a, Verizon or a Deloitte. We have a number of solutions that we have, partnered together on. So we're in a very unique position to help enable change across our value chain, I would say, unlike our competitors. And one thing along those lines, as we're just discussing differentiators, SAP, so my team in partnership with our telco, with our telecommunications business unit, launched a 5G council 2 years ago. So in June of 2018. And the reason that we launched that council was to look at an industry level, what key changes or business models would a new technology like 5G represent? Because 5G represents a step function change in capability. You're able to
Yep.
pull together edge services, data management, AI and machine learning, and it becomes very much a hub and a platform for innovation. So when we think about the 5G ecosystem and pulling together, companies like Verizon or Ericsson, we've got a number of, both key customers and partners that we have pulled together into this 5G council that we can use, and we've essentially pulled together to be able to look at new business models, new monetization strategies, and new innovation methodologies, which has spawned a 5G playbook for specific verticals. So we've actually created a number of playbooks that we can bring into customers, and we've done quite a bit of work, for example, with Deloitte around, as well as other SIs, but we've done quite a bit of heavy lifting with Deloitte, creating these 5G playbooks. So a given customer can learn about 5G, explore specific use cases, and have that flow into tangible solutions and projects that pull from SAP software platform. We have a reference architecture to support that. Pulls from connectivity of a telco, and it leverages a system integrator like a Deloitte, for example, to quarterback or lead that implementation. And that in and of itself, I would say, is a unique differentiator that we are 2, maybe 3 years ahead of the competition in terms of having proof points on the ground around 5G implementations and showcasing how we can bring that to life with a unified software suite.
Okay. I mean, 5G obviously, as you say, represents a real step change. On those verticals, are you able to perhaps give me some examples of I guess, how vast that change is, or how it's such a different method of thinking? And are there any particular use cases or verticals that 5G will benefit more than others, perhaps, for example?
So on the 5G side, we're very excited by the fact that 5G in the enterprise for private 5G deployments is likely where we're going to see significant traction over the next 2, 3, 4 years. Yes, the public network will do amazing things from a 5G standpoint, but it's going to take a significant infrastructure update over the next over that time frame for consumer services really to take hold. So where we're excited on the private side, when you look at manufacturing, for example, and we've done this, we've helped pull and move to an industry 4.0 approach for key manufacturers, one of which we pulled out their Wi-Fi environment and actually implemented a 5G environment so that they could support autonomous vehicles. We worked with that manufacturer to leverage AR goggles, for example, to be able to track work in progress material that was flowing through the shop floor. So we've done a number of innovative 5G/data platform solutions. So we have leaned on those experiences to shape and influence the innovation methodology that we've put in place. But when you think about, yes, SAP has a very strong track record in manufacturing. We also have a strong record when you think about retail. So when you, for example, use video analytics at scale or mixed reality experiences to be able to scan through, product contents or look for drug interactions, for example, it becomes very compelling that you can have on-demand services come to life in a very light touch way to remove friction, for example, out of the retail environment. So when you look at autonomous checkout, or when you look at mixed reality to be able to see product content, those are experiences that consumers don't have today, right? So we've been looking at how can we help retailers, how can we help the overall value chain with these type of solutions, so it becomes very exciting. And again, going back to my point around it being a platform, we are so excited that with 5G, with our data platform, with our IoT solutions, we can really fundamentally change how our customers operate as well as how they go to market themselves.
Right. So 5G obviously kind of underpins all of those technologies, as you were saying. How does it change the use or the application or the adoption of technology such as AI and machine learning? What does it bring out of those technologies that previously you couldn't, for example?
So not just 5G itself, but coupling it with edge services. So when you think about the marrying of edge services, so when I can, for example, have the processing occur on a IoT sensor or on an autonomous vehicle, so I can define exactly what's the optimal route for that autonomous vehicle or forklift, that becomes very exciting. You no longer have the delay that needs to, or the latency to send those instructions to the cloud or to an on-premise system and then have to send them back, right? So you now have that on board. So you have quite a bit more intelligence and quite a bit more responsiveness that we can bring to life that we haven't been able to do before. And I would also say the other key component is when you think about just the pure bandwidth that new technologies like Wi-Fi 6 and 5G represent, you now move from a 2D environment into a 3D environment. So if I, for example, as opposed to using an Excel spreadsheet to track down product on a shop floor, if I can use AR goggles to identify exactly a customer order, it may be located in 3 or 4 spots on the shop floor, and it had taken me 6 or 8 hours to barcode scan and find that. Well, if I could do it in a few seconds with AR goggles and have that route exactly where I need to go, that fundamentally changes the worker's experience and their effectiveness on that shop floor in that day to the point that maybe they're working on 3 or 4 times as many customer orders as they had before.
Right.
So that's where we're seeing that step function change, that because we have a platform approach, because we have the data and the analytics, and SAP can provide really the core backbone to bring these technologies to life, whether it's advanced connectivity like Wi-Fi 6 or 5G, machine learning, edge services. SAP can serve very much as that nerve center to make sure that all of these technologies link together in a fluid manner and it supports a given business process. So that's where we're very, very keen on, when you think about the next 5 to 8 years, we're going to see, significant change around how these organizations operate. So that's why we're very, very, bullish on the future.
It's a really exciting prospect, and it's a huge change. I mean, you talk about that 5 to 8 year projection and significant change. I mean, where does I guess a sort of change management strategy come into that? Because as you said, it's a huge shift for organizations. How do they accommodate that? How do they work with that to ensure that the culture and change management processes are in place?
So one of the things, that we've put in place within SAP, because we've taken, and through our history, we've been very design centric. We've been very user centric in our design throughout our history. So I would say that the empathy and the trust to be able to focus in on the end user first has served us well over the course of the last 40 plus years. So as we think about helping to enable, and to your point, how do you drive a new level of adoption around these new technologies and these new services? We've been very, we've taken very much a grassroots approach. So we've worked with the user base, for example, on that manufacturing 4.0, solution. We embedded the core users, the core staff that are going to be leveraging that system right out of the gate. So we looked for their feedback, their input, helped them understand how this new technology, because for example, where they'd been using barcode scanners and Excel spreadsheets, we actually made it very clear that not only was this new and innovative using, AR goggles, for example, to be able to see where the product was located on the shop floor, but we got excited by the fact that they could now do things that they could never do before. There was a work safety concern, for example, that if they had paper in their hand or a phone or a tablet distracting them, because there's forklifts running around, there's heavy machinery they could get caught in. So there was clearly a worker safety concern. So there was probably 10 years where there was no development or no additional tools or benefits that the staff had. And with us having a step function leap, it was literally like jumping from a bicycle to a car. So we helped them see that how fast they could go, how much more productive they could be. So that's, when you see the light turn on in a staff member's eyes, that becomes very, very powerful. So that's very much the change management approach that we've put in place, is relying on our users to shape and influence the design, involving them through the design and development process so that they're actually part of the solution throughout its entire design. So I've seen that work extremely well in terms of how we approach, kind of change management overall.
I see. And what about the consumer, the evolution of the consumer? You've mentioned that a lot in the approach. I personally write a lot for financial services, fintech. Obviously, the personal experience, customization is a huge trend. Do you think that the way we, as a community, as people, interact with devices and technology is driving change for organizations and for SAP?
Oh, absolutely. I feel that we're becoming, there's a level of personalization, and we're now at the cusp of having personalization at scale, meaning that every experience, whether you're an employee or a consumer, can be tailored to that unique individual in terms of, like we were touching on, the worker on the shop floor. We could map out exactly what their day looked like and how to optimize their day before they even started, right? I mean, you can imagine being able to do that, to be able to say, these are, the pallets you're going to need to move. This is, what we expect you to be able to support over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 hours. And being able to do that using AI and machine learning to be able to help map and, route optimize where they need to flow in the factory, what they need to work on. And the same thing applies to consumers. I mean, imagine being able to help guide them very easily with light touch, wayfinding, for example, as they work through a given grocery or a given retailer. Being able to help them identify exactly the location of what they need, be able to help target and identify, out of stock before it happens, so that there's not a negative customer experience. So there's a number of things that we're in a position, again, on the cusp, and not to say this can't be done today with 4G or existing technologies, but where we see, the Wi-Fi 6s and the 5Gs of the world coming into play is that we're able to handle these data volumes at scale. So whether it's 1,000 cameras in a retail location, or bots being able to help support restocking of shelves, we're in a position that we can now handle that bandwidth and provide the predictive analytics and the data management to support the video analytics, as well as the customer experience improvements that we haven't been able to before. So it becomes very much an opportunity area for us as we think about the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Great. Obviously, we should touch on COVID-19, how that's sort of changed the landscape. I mean, from your perspective, I guess, from a service offering center of excellence perspective, and indeed, I guess, the way organizations are interacting with technology, what do you think will be the biggest changes, and what is your kind of vision of that new normal that is a phrase that's used far too much already, in my view, but how do you sort of see that being shaped out?
Well, I see that there's a significant opportunity, particularly on the retail side, to remove contact out of, and potentially friction out of, the retail experience.
Yeah.
So if, for example, I walk in store and I want to be able to route optimize, the product that I may not even necessarily specified, but off of past shopping behavior, a given app can be able to provide recommendations in terms of what you're going to need for groceries, for example, and where to find those and optimize that route through the shop. So when I think about new technologies like not being able to, or being able to identify with mixed reality the content or drug interactions of a given piece of cereal, for example, or a box, imagine them not having to ask for help or engage with the local staff. And if you do need help, we could also offer either AI chatbots or a level of dynamic content that could satisfy the consumer's need, again, where they may not need a retail representative to be close by. And that becomes very exciting because it creates an operational efficiency for the retailer, but also eliminates the need for contact or engagement with store staff. If, for example, you had on your phone or on a dynamic display on the store shelf content that's specific to that consumer in terms of drug interactions, or knowing, for example, you may have an allergy in the family. Imagine if that presented proactively, as you're reaching for a box of cereal, imagine if that, aid, that dynamic display said, whoa, wait a second, you should buy the one, that's, a couple feet down. So that becomes very exciting, as we think about being, again, tailored to the individual and needing, or meeting their needs in ways that we haven't done before. And then when you think about, efficiencies around self-checkout, so being able to use camera analytics or being able to use, a given retailer's app to be able to drop, those items in a shopping cart and then to be able to leave, again, it creates an efficiency where you don't even need the kiosks for that retailer to be manned or to even be present if you have a full, autonomous checkout, opportunity. So there's a number of things that we see as tangible solutions, even that the next couple years that we can implement to be able to respond to a COVID-19 approach.
Amazing. And I mean, in terms of the way we look at technology, do you think it will sort of reshape the way that the businesses prioritize their technology needs and their adaptation strategy?
Absolutely, because tied into my point earlier around when you think about the number of use cases that are potential, and you then are better able to value. And one of the things that SAP is very strong on, particularly over the last 7-8 years, with our data platform, we're uniquely positioned to be able to help and shape the modeling of the impact that each of those use cases holds. So for example, if I want to take a look at, what's the likelihood, of, a stock outage, around a given product, right? Well, if I could use past data, that's stored in HANA, for example, I could better track and plan for, supply chain needs as they, as they approach, a given stock outage.
Yep.
So using our data platform, customers are in unique positions that they can be able to model and emulate. Well, what if I have a real-time supply chain and inventory system? How can I take advantage of that and make sure that there is not a stock outage in that situation? So there's a number of things that our data platform is able to provide that our customers can lean on and rely on as they move forward and define what technology spend would they need to focus in on to drive the most benefit.
Okay, and so I mean, sort of looking ahead, it's obviously a really exciting prospect, and as you said, a fundamental huge shift. I mean, firstly, I guess, what are the priorities in terms of continuing this rollout and the way you work with customers, and has the sort of COVID-19 effect and impact, has it changed the way SAP is viewing its future strategy?
I would say, so our strategy over the course of the last, I would say 2-3 years, because we've made a number of acquisitions, has really been to bolster and align the portfolio together. To create connection points between our cloud and our on-prem offerings. But now that we have a number of new edge services and edge capabilities, it's really creating a unique weave across those 3 tiers to make sure that they seamlessly interact. So I would say that as we've buttoned that overall portfolio up to have, the edge, cloud, and on-premise, solutions in our solution portfolio, whether it's around procurement or human capital or customer experience, as we've bolstered that and pulled that together, I would say we're now in a unique jumping off point to take advantage of, let's say, advanced connectivity, like a Wi-Fi 6 or a 5G, be able to leverage new solutions and new capabilities and really get customers thinking differently about how they operate. So whether it's on a retail shop floor, whether it's in the healthcare space, being able to use 5G, for example, to do remote physician training. We're working with one customer around how do we help them, for example, not fly physicians across hospitals or back to their, to a central location, but actually use an immersive technology like 5G to emulate given patient procedures. And then when you think about patient confidentiality, imagine not have to worry that the scans or the patient content that's coming to an iPad or to a given, doctor's phone or device to be able to share with a patient. Imagine if that was streamed using edge services. So it's actually never stored on the device, but it's actually still retained on the cloud or in the server. That becomes a very powerful solution, again, where the device in and of itself is enabling the connectivity and the immersive experience for the patient, but then there's a level of confidentiality that you don't need to worry about.
Brilliant. And Frank, I mean, I know you've talked about 5 to 8 years, and you've talked, I guess, projected to the future, but in terms of 5G and this shift we're discussing, I mean, how many years do you see the rollout, the use of 5G being into the future until we have really achieved a widespread fundamental shift for many sectors and industries and organizations?
To be honest with you, I mean, we've already started that journey with our customers. I mean, we've been doing that over the last 18 months. So we've already made this, real today. In terms of driving mass adoption, I mean, very similar to the IoT forecast that we see for the next, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, I think in the next 36 months, you're going to see a watershed moment around each of those technologies. So edge services, data management, as well as IoT adoption, really springboard and there very much be a hockey stick, let's say in late 2021, through the course of 2022, once customers, enterprise customers have really been able to see the proof points that we've put in place over the last, year and a half. Because from an enterprise standpoint, as you know, 10 years is fast. So to think that to do this in 3, I see that as a very strong case for, why, customers are very excited by the potential. Because again, it's a platform. It's not a specific technology. It's not a specific solution. So even customers that we've had, advanced connectivity conversations with, they are really, the lights starting to come on in terms of, oh, wow, this is a platform, similar to HANA for us. So you can do an amazing number of things with HANA in terms of solutions and capabilities, modeling, analytics, storing data at scale. But then when you look at like a 5G, it's the equivalent from a, in terms of connectivity. You now can do video analytics. You can now track product all the way down to a centimeter. You can, there's a number of things that you never even thought possible to enable a digital transformation of most every vertical. So we're going to see both of those come into line. And again, we like to refer to it as a data tsunami. So we see the data tsunami coming, the swell is already kicking up, and we're going to see it crash here in 24 to 36 months, I would say, is the estimate.
Awesome. It's a hugely exciting prospect, and obviously your passion for it, it comes through. I mean, a couple of more personal questions, if I may, because we have a sort of nice feature piece on the interviewee as well. I mean, throughout your career, obviously, you've worked across several areas of technology, as you said at the beginning. But I mean, what sort of are the most exciting trends, technologies, or what have been the real sort of watershed moments dotted throughout your career that sort of have excited you most and inspired you?
So what I love is, really solving, challenging problems, that both mix strategy, process, technology, and then when you weave in kind of a change management component to make sure that the change is sustainable, I would say those are have been the most rewarding or the most engaging. One of which, for example, was, we had deployed, on the public sector side, I'd done quite a bit of work with state and local government. So we had redone, a health and human services application for the state of California. We had deployed and reshaped, the state of Nevada's DMV system. Nevada, for example, you could expect 8 hours just to do basic transactions in terms of getting a driver's license and get your car registered. And what we did was, rather than just giving them a system, the RFP that the state had put out was just for a new system, because their, legacy database was 40 years old, and they were pulling spare parts off eBay, to try and keep it up and running. And what they felt was, they were a bit narrow in terms of scope, in terms of, we just need a new database. And that, when we went in and to look at the equation, we said, no, actually, you really need to look more holistically in terms of, you need to change the layout of the offices, you need to cross-train the staff, and then that'll, support, new operations moving forward. So that's the type of work that I've very much enjoyed throughout my career, has been, how do we help, really create a public service and look at ways to innovate. And one of the things that we did was, again, looked holistically around the process, the operation, as well as, what was the customer and employee experience that we needed to marry together. And it moved beyond the technical application. The application clearly was a foundational element, but it wasn't the only pillar that we needed to focus in on. So that's very much how I've taken it throughout my career, is how do we make sure those 4 elements are satisfied? What's the strategy? What's the process involved? What's the technical platform? And then how do we enable that through a level of change management that's going to support adoption, with the customer base moving forward, or the employee base?
Great. And just finally, I guess with that center of excellence work, it obviously involves working closely with the customer. I assume that that's a sort of important aspect of that for you, building that long-term relationship. Is that, I guess, for you and for SAP, is that really a sort of fundamental way in which you work?
Absolutely. We're very much tied. Even just in the last week, for example, we engaged with a national university in the U.S. We had focused in on, they actually came to us just a couple of weeks ago and asked for help around how could we help them innovate. And they had no idea that we offered data science. They had no idea that we, had a platform and tools approach. So what we did was, in short order, to your point, we met with their head of supply chain. We met with the head of, their